I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
Hey, what's poppin' the homies? Hope you're doing well, feeling blessed, having a good day, having a good week. This one's going to be Perth, Australia, the main event. Carlos Ulberg taking on Dominick Reyes. And guys, we're going to jump straight into the breakdowns because we've got a 14 fight card here. And I'm going to do quite a detailed breakdown. So this might be over an hour. So let's go. Let's go. First matchup on the card, we've got Loma Lookboonmee taking on Alexia Thainara, which takes place in the strawweight division. So let's start the breakdown with the UFC tested fighter and the fighter that's one of, if not, the very best Muay Thai striker in the UFC, and the fighter that hasn't lost in nearly 4 years, 3 years, 9 months to be exact. That's Loma Lookboonmee. The Muay Thai striking of Loma is just phenomenal. Her kicking ability is second to none. The switch kicks, the roundhouse kicks, the push kicks, inside calf kicks, outside calf kicks, head kicks. She's a phenomenal kicker, is Loma Lookboonmee. Then you look at her clinch striking, which is a massive part of being a Muay Thai player. In the Muay Thai clinch, Loma is super nasty. Damaging knees to the body, elbows off the break. There's so much damage on the feet for Loma Lookboonmee. And that's the main reason why she hasn't lost in nearly 4 years. Anytime you can go 4 years without losing at the highest level of mixed martial arts, that's a crazy good achievement. But here's the thing though, there is a weakness in the mixed martial arts skill set of Loma Lookboonmee, and it's typically the wrestling. It's typically her takedown defense. She doesn't have a good sprawl. She doesn't have a good down block. Her defensive wrestling is just not that good. Now she has improved her wrestling and grappling over the years, but it's still the way to fight against Loma Lookboonmee. You don't go into a Loma fight and say, I'm going to stand and strike with Loma. I'm going to outstrike Loma. That's not a thing. You ain't going to do that against one of the best Muay Thai boxers in the UFC. So the fight's pretty simple for me, guys. If Loma stays on the feet, she's going to dominate Alexia Thainara. There's levels to the striking game, and not many can stand and compete with someone like Loma Lookboonmee. Now, Alexia Thainara, she's not as proven as Loma. She's only had one fight in the UFC, and she dominated that fight. She done exactly what she was supposed to do in that UFC debut in order to win that fight. She mauled Molly McCann. She mauled her so badly that Molly McCann retired. That's how badly she dusted Molly McCann. So if you're Alexia Thainara, you don't really change too much in this fight. The game plan should remain the same. You go into this fight and do exactly the same thing to Loma Lookboonmee that you did to the fan favourite Molly McCann. You don't need to change anything in this fight. And if you do change anything with this game plan, you're going to give Loma a good chance of winning. It's very simple. Either Alexia Thainara gets the takedown and destroys Loma Lookboonmee on the ground, or Loma stays on the feet and absolutely destroys Alexia in the stand-up. I would also make the point that no matter where this fight takes place, it's going to be a mismatch. Loma Lookboonmee's never had a strong ground game. She's always been very weak off her back. She doesn't know how to get up off the mat. And that's down to the fact that she's not a lifelong wrestler. She's not a lifelong grappler. And she's pretty small. Loma isn't some physical animal. She's a technical Thai boxing animal. So if you get Loma to the ground, you've got a really, really good chance at winning that fight. If we stay on the feet, then good luck to Alexia. Good luck. You don't want to play the striking game with Loma. And I'm assuming that Alexia already knows that. I'm assuming Alexia wants to push Loma to the fence, run a single leg, run a double leg, get a body lock takedown, an outside trip, an inside trip. I'm assuming she understands the game plan is exactly the same as a UFC debut. So my prediction is going to be the rookie. I'm going to pick Alexia Thainara to win this fight. We can't really make predictions based on popularity or reputation. We have to make predictions based on skill set versus skill set and also factor in the betting line. I think Alexia Thainara gets the takedown and dominates this fight on the canvas. So the first prediction has to be Alexia Thainara. Next matchup, we've got Brando, the Balkan Bear Pericic, taking on Elijah Snack Panther Ellison. And this one's going to be the shortest breakdown for today's breakdown. I'm leaning heavily towards fight doesn't go the distance with this fight. And I'm assuming most people are. But it's going to be super juiced. Now, Brando Pericic, a CKB product. He's very technical. Super aggressive, only been past round one once in his career, so I'm expecting Pericic to be advancing forward, bringing the fight to his opponent, especially in front of his own people in his debut. As for Elijah Ellison, he's got power. He's got serious power. I wouldn't say he's as technical as Pericic, but let's be real. The heavyweight division isn't really a division that's decided based on technique. A lot of the time at heavyweight, it's whoever lands first wins. And that's why I call it heavyweight roulette. I think betting on heavyweights is equally as dangerous as betting on women's mixed martial arts. But guys, from time to time, I do break the rules. I do bet on women's mixed martial arts and I do bet on heavyweights. I lean towards the CKB fighter that is Brandon Pericic. I think he's going to win this fight via KO TKO. But my first prediction will be, fight doesn't go the distance. And I'm sure we all agree with that. Next matchup, we've got Luana Dread Carolina taking on Michelle, the Wild One Montague, taking place in the bantamweight division. So let's start the breakdown with the UFC proven fighter, the plus 170 underdog, Luana Carolina. And the first thing I want to say is this. Historically speaking, Luana's proven to be a very, very good underdog to put your money on. She's been the underdog in her UFC career 7 times. And she's won 4 of those fights, which is a 57% win rate as the underdog. She's currently 6 wins, 3 losses inside the UFC. To be the underdog 7 times from your 9 UFC fights, she's familiar with that underdog role. She understands how to ruin these parlays. And I'd say that Luana's an overachiever. She's not the most technical. She's not the best grappler. She's not the best wrestler. She's not the sharpest fighter you've ever seen. She kind of fights in slow motion. But like I say, she's won 6 of her 9 UFC fights. And to win 4 out of 7 as an underdog, that's pretty good. So the stats are looking pretty good on Luana Carolina. Now she does get taken down though. In her win against Ivana Petrovic, there was a lot of clinching in that fight and she just about outclassed the rookie Ivana Petrovic. In her fight against Julia Stoliarenko, she did win that fight, but at one point she gets taken down. In her fight against Lucia Pudilova, the same thing. She wins the fight, but at one point she gets taken down. So her takedown defense hasn't proven to be good. She's not hitting sprawls. She's not hitting down blocks. And that's a problem going up against someone like Michelle, the Wild One Montague, because this girl is basically the Kiwi version of Kayla Harrison. And anytime you compare someone to female Habib, aka Kayla Harrison, you've got a potential beast here with Michelle Montague. Michelle's only fought at lightweight and featherweight. Similar to Kayla coming to the UFC, this will be her first time going to bantamweight. So weighing in at bantamweight for the first time, that might be a challenge for Michelle Montague. And when you cut so much weight, that typically fatigues the fighter before the fight even starts. Of course, you get the full day rehydration and occasionally get the IV to rehydrate, but dehydrating yourself that much before a fight is never a good thing to do. And that's why the scale is always the fight before the fight. But guys, as for the skill set of Michelle Montague, it's the same thing as Kayla Harrison. She doesn't have good stand-up skills. She's not a great puncher. She's not a great kicker. She's all about the ground game. She's 6-0 as a professional, and all 6 of those wins are rear naked choke victories. So if we're following the trend of Michelle's career so far, she's going to rear naked choke Luana Carolina. Michelle was also very inexperienced. Don't get me wrong though, so far so good in the career of Michelle Montague. But this is by far the biggest test today in her career. Luana Carolina is a UFC veteran at this point. She's not going in there to fight someone 1-3, 4-2, 0-0, 0-1. She's not fighting any of those. She's going in there to fight someone who's won 6 of her 9 UFC fights. So from an experience perspective, Luana does have an advantage there. I've also noticed with Michelle, her cardio's not the best. If you can get past round 1, the fight does become easier. So what don't I like on the side of Michelle? I don't like that she's weighing in at bantamweight for the first time in her UFC debut. You know, Los Anqueta vibes. I don't like that she's inexperienced. I don't like that she's one-dimensional. And I don't like that her cardio's weak. Having said all of that, she's still a mini Kayla Harrison. And that's a massive positive. She's insanely strong. She's lethal on the ground. And when she gets the back of her opponent, good luck to the opponent. She's an absolute unit. She's a unit, unbelievably strong, extremely physical. And a lot of the time in women's mixed martial arts, it's all about who's got the superior physicality. So how does a fight play out between Luana Carolina and the rookie Michelle Montague? Well, I think Luana Carolina, man, her defensive wrestling is just not good. And that's a nightmare weakness to have against someone who wants to put the fight on the ground. Yes, Michelle is very inexperienced and it's a massive test this weekend, but Luana Carolina, she's also stepping up to bantamweight, whereas Michelle is stepping down to bantamweight. So there's going to be a real physicality difference in this fight, with Michelle being the much stronger fighter. Luana Carolina's missed weight twice in her career at 125, and I'm assuming she doesn't want to get cut missing weight for a third time, so she's moving up in weight. And in all fairness, it's a tough debut at bantamweight. You're going against someone who's extremely good with their takedowns, someone who's amazingly strong, and the takedown defense of Luana is proven to be very weak. So I'm going to pick the rookie in her debut. I'm going to pick Michelle the Wild One Montague to get it done. Next matchup, we've got Colby Thicknesse taking on Josias, the KO Wizard Musasa, taking place in the bantamweight division. And it almost feels like a contender series matchup. You've got Colby Thicknesse 7-1 as a professional, 0-1 inside the UFC. You've got Musasa 8-1 as a professional, 0-1 inside the UFC. It's not the most high-level UFC fight on the card, but that doesn't mean it won't be a banger. It still has the ingredients. It still has the potential to be a fun fight, to be a banger. Let's first speak about Colby Thicknesse, who's a long-time training partner of the great Alexander Volkanovski. Colby had a very tough debut. He fought Ilia Toporia's brother, Alexandre Topuria, and I'm pretty sure it was a short-notice fight, if my memory serves me correct. Now, looking at Colby's performance, I've got to be honest, I wasn't overly impressed with Colby Thicknesse. His strikes didn't carry a whole lot of power, and his opponent's strikes, Alexandre Topuria, they did carry a lot of power. So there was a real difference for me when the fighters threw their punches. When Colby threw his strikes, nothing really happened. When Alexandre threw his strikes, you definitely felt there was an impact difference. So that really stood out to me rewatching the fight. And that's something I'd like to see Colby do a little bit better in this fight. When you throw your punches, when you throw your kicks, really mean it. Don't just throw it to throw it. Throw those strikes with real intention to hurt the opponent. You're not sparring now. It's not a spar. It's a real fight. So when you throw the punches, put real intention, put real meaning into that punch. Put the violence into the technique. But as for the cardio of Colby Thicknesse, I think his cardio is very good. You can tell he trains well throughout the week. His cardio looks very, very good. And as for the footwork of Colby Thicknesse, that also looks very good. Footwork and cardio is on the better side for Colby Thicknesse. And he's also very well rounded, as you'd expect for someone that trains with Volkanovski. He's able to get takedowns, finish the fight on the ground. And that's something I'd like to see from Colby in this fight. You know, more power in the strikes. And also, if the striking isn't going well, bring the opponent to the ground. If you're not causing a whole lot of damage on the feet, then why not bring Musasa to the ground? Why not exploit his ground game? Now, the opponent, Josias Musasa, 0-1 inside the UFC, after a very, very embarrassing UFC debut. He went into his UFC debut as a -900 and got finished in the first round. Now, that's diabolical. That really is. But guys, having said that, that's the fight game. That's the fight game, man. 1 minute you're throwing punches on the feet. The next second you're on the floor asking yourself, where am I? What happened? What did I get hit with? He got caught. He got caught with a sneaky head kick. And Carlos Vera did very well at sneaking that head kick up just behind the shoulder. It was completely out of sight of Musasa. And it's always about the strikes you don't see that hurt the most. And he hit that head kick really well. Now, the first question I have is, can Colby Thicknesse land something similar to Carlos Vera? Can Colby hide his strikes and trick Musasa in the same way as Carlos Vera? Based on Colby's striking in his debut, where he's not throwing with a whole lot of power, he's not really trying to put real intentions into the strikes, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that if he was to take down Musasa, that's the best game plan for Colby Thicknesse. Put on a wrestling game plan, a grappling game plan, and look for a submission the same way as Carlos Vera against Musasa. If the fight stays on the feet, I do expect Musasa to be the one who's landing the more significant punches. Colby's punches, they didn't carry enough weight in that UFC debut, whereas Musasa's punches, they're very heavy. You know, his octagon name is the KO Wizard. He's got multiple round 1 KO TKOs. So there's a real difference in punching power. Musasa has the boxing advantage, the power advantage. So if Colby Thicknesse isn't getting the fight to the ground, I'm not sure he's going to cause enough damage on the feet to win this fight. His output may be good, And obviously output can win you fights, but output doesn't come before damage. You can outpunch your opponent every round and still lose 30-27. Because guys, it's not about who's throwing more punches, who's landing more punches. Of course that's a factor. It is a factor. But what we're looking for is the damage. And Musasa's punches, they do cause damage. So my prediction is going to be Josias Musasa with either a KO TKO or a decision win. I lean more towards round 1 or round 2 KO TKO. I've just got a feeling that Musasa's going to find Colby's chin in those first 10 minutes. And someone's going to get their first UFC win between Colby Thicknesse and Josias Musasa. So that's fun. They both lost their debut. And Musasa lost in embarrassing fashion, whereas Colby, he put up a very good fight against Alexandre Topuria. So based on those differences in debut, I'm sure a lot of people are going to side with Colby Thicknesse. But like I say, there's a real difference in punch and power. And if the fight stays on the feet, I do side with Josias. If Colby puts on a grappling game plan, a wrestling game plan, and brings his, ground experience against Josias, I can see him winning. But I think it's going to stay on the feet. And I don't really like the punch and power of Colby. So I'm going to go with the KO wizard, Josias Musasa. Next matchup, we've got Jamie Mullarkey taking on Rolando the Machine Bedoya, taking place in the lightweight division. And the first thing I want to say is, without a doubt, this fight will be entertaining. For anyone who watches the UFC purely for entertainment, you're not gambling, you're just watching the fights for pure entertainment. Don't miss Jamie Mullarkey versus Rolando Bedoya early on the prelims. It's going to be a banger. So let's start the breakdown with the A side, the Australian Jamie Mullarkey. Jamie is now 5 wins, 6 losses inside the UFC, which isn't a good record. But he has fought Nasrat Haqparast and Mauricio Rufy in his last couple of fights. And those guys are absolute animals. Now, Jamie Mullarkey is a fairly well-rounded mixed martial artist. He can wrestle, he can grapple, but he primarily likes to kickbox. One thing he's not good at, though, is defense. Jamie Mullarkey is so hittable, and he's taken an unbelievable amount of damage throughout his UFC career. He joined the UFC back in 2019 when he fought Brad Riddell, and my goodness, who remembers that fight against Brad Riddell? That was an absolute banger, and the damage Jamie took in that fight was just insane. His defense hasn't really improved a whole lot over the years. He's been in multiple wars. He's taken so much damage. Recently against Nasrat Haqparast, he got KO'd in round 1. Then against Mauricio Rufy, he got KO'd in round 1. The poor striking defense of Jamie Mullarkey is a real concern 6 years into his UFC career. Now on the flip side, we've got Rolando the Machine Bedoya, who's now 0-3 inside the UFC. It's now or never for Rolando. If you lose this fight and go 0-4, at that point, get ready to sign a contract for the PFL or whoever else, because you won't be signing another one with the UFC, that's for sure. Rolando Bedoya's most recent performance was a decision loss to Jai Herbert. He dropped down from welterweight to lightweight, didn't find a whole lot of success in that debut at 155, but has decided to stay in the lightweight division, which in my opinion is the right idea, because at welterweight, he's just too small for 170. Looking back at his performance against Jai Herbert, to be honest, I don't think it was a bad performance. He didn't find, enough success in that performance, but it wasn't a bad one. He's landing the calf kick, and the calf kick was nice. He was landing that nice and early in the fight, and he was landing it throughout the whole fight. He did get taken down at one point, but instantly works his way back to the feet. He even got dropped in round 1 and instantly recovers and gets back into the fight. I don't think it was a bad performance, but it wasn't a winning performance, When we watch these fights on a weekly basis, we can tell what looks like a winning performance and what's not good enough. And that's been the case for Rolando Bedoya. His performances haven't been winning performances. I think the biggest issue Rolando had in that fight against Jai Herbert was the timing and the range. He couldn't find his range. Jai Herbert's footwork and jab really made it difficult for Rolando to get his timing down. Basically, he wasn't in control of the fight. He wasn't dictating the dance. Jai Herbert was dictating most of that fight. Now, what makes this fight so good this weekend is Jamie Mullarkey and Rolando Bedoya. They're both quite bad with their defensive boxing. When punches are thrown at these two fighters, they're not exactly slipping punches. They're not exactly showcasing elite boxing defense, so expect knockdowns, expect blood, expect both fighters to receive a fair amount of damage, which is going to make it a fun fight. I think Rolando Bedoya is a little faster, a little sharper than Jamie Mullarkey. For example, the low kick of Bedoya is really nice. He can fire that low kick with zero wind-up. I also like the left hook of Bedoya. He's got a short, powerful left hook that can certainly crack the chin of Jamie Mullarkey. And guys, remember, Jamie Mullarkey's taken so much damage over the years, and that chin, it's not holding up the way it used to 3 or 4 years ago. All that damage doesn't make the chin stronger. It makes the chin weaker. And we're really starting to see the consequences of that in Jamie's last 2 performances. I think Jamie needs to wrestle. If you're Jamie Mullarkey, push Rolando Bedoya against the fence, work him over in the clinch against the fence, get those takedowns and smash Rolando Bedoya on the ground. Put together a seasoned performance, a veteran performance, because Jamie Mullarkey hasn't looked good on the feet recently. I know recently he fought against Nasrat Haqparas and Mauricio Rufi, and both of those guys are animals compared to Rolando Bedoya, so you could say, well, the guys that knocked him out are so much better than Rolando. That's true, but he is still so hittable. He's been so hittable throughout his whole UFC career. Opponents just get the timing down on Jamie Mullarkey so easily. I don't know why, but they just do. And Rolando Bedoya has his back against the fence being 0-3 inside the UFC. So Jamie Mullarkey should literally put his back against the fence. Put Rolando in the clinch. Wrestle him to the mat. Because if this fight stays on the feet, I do favour the fighter that's desperate for a win. I do slightly favour Rolando Bedoya. So guys, my prediction is going to be Rolando Bedoya with a decision win, potentially split for Rolando. I think it's possible that Jamie Mullarkey, he's winning each round. He's having good rounds, but his poor boxing defense just lets him down and Rolando stuns him, drops him, rocks him, does something like that in a couple of rounds, which helps the judges lean towards Rolando Bedoya. And those rounds could be going to Jamie Mullarkey up until that very moment where he gets stunned, he gets rocked, he gets wobbled. I just can't trust the bad defense of Jamie Mullarkey. And you also factor in how badly he got knocked out in his most recent fights. You factor in the chin starting to really fade on Jamie Mullarkey. I know Rolando Bedoya is 0-3. He hasn't won a fight yet. But I'm seeing too many red flags with Jamie Mullarkey. So I'm going to go with Rolando Bedoya to win this fight. But from a betting perspective, don't bet this. Just watch this. Enjoy the fight. Next matchup, we've got Jonathan, the captain Micallef, taking on Oban, the Welsh gangster Elliot, taking place in the welterweight division. Let's start the breakdown with the UFC tested fighter, the Welsh gangster Oban Elliot. Oban Elliot is so far 3 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. He got to the UFC by way of the Contender, where he was actually a plus 135 underdog in that Contender Series performance. Since winning that contract, he's done pretty well in the UFC. His debut was a nice win against Val Woodburn. I said in that breakdown, Val Woodburn probably drops Oban Elliot, then Oban Elliot recovers, takes over, and that's exactly what happened. So that was a good breakdown. And guys, to be honest, that performance in my debut, it kind of shows you who Oban Elliot is. He's a scrappy Welsh gangster, willing to overcome adversity in order to get his hand raised. His follow-up performances were definitely better than his debut. I picked him to win against Preston Parsons as a plus 140 underdog. And I remember getting a comment on that breakdown saying nobody that week, no prediction channel that week was picking against Preston Parsons. His most recent win against Basil Hafez is without a doubt his best UFC performance to date. The way he boxed in that fight was so impressive. He showcased good speed, good technique, and ultimately good power that got the job done. However, his most recent performance was a major setback. It was a major setback. He went into that fight as a minus 500, minus 600. And I'd have to say, his opponent was the one that looked minus 500, minus 600. Oban got massively outclassed in that fight. He was outboxed. He was out-wrestled. He was out-grappled. It was a shocking performance on the side of Oban Elliot. But setbacks, they do happen. Not just in sport, but in life. There's always going to be a bump in the road eventually. And that was the bump in the road for Oban Elliot. Now the opponent, Jonathan the Captain Micallef, also punched his way to the UFC via Contender Series, and his Contender Series performance, It was really good stuff. It was so good. We didn't get to see the striking in the Contender Series from Jonathan Micallef. The fight on the Contender, it went to the clinch pretty quickly. And from there, Jonathan Micallef judo throws his opponent to the canvas, nearly establishes full mount, but instead gets half guard. And from there starts to work towards a submission, probably a little bit too fast than what he should have. So he loses that position on the ground and both fighters return to the feet. Micallef stays in the clinch, tries to get an outside trip, but instead falls to the ground. So now you're seeing a little bit of the inexperience on the side of Micallef on the Contender. And at this point, his opponent instantly locks up a guillotine choke. And to be honest, rewatching the fight back, I'm surprised his opponent didn't finish that choke. It looked locked in. It looked tight. And Jonathan Micallef, instead of fighting the hands, goes for a double leg takedown as he's getting choked. And his opponent just randomly falls over. And this was the beginning of the end for this fight. Micallef gets into full mount, starts to land punches, and as his opponent's building back to the knees, Micallef transitions from his back to a locked-in triangle choke. So overall, I think Micallef's Contender Series performance, it showed that he's got a lot of potential, but it also showed he's still pretty green. Then you see his UFC debut. He was a plus 170 underdog against Kevin Josias, and my goodness, man, what a performance. Like I said, we didn't get to see the striking on the Contender. It went to the clinch, but we saw a beautiful striking display by Jonathan Micallef against Josias in his debut. The kicks of Micallef, they were beautiful. They were so brutal, so powerful. He completely outclassed Kevin Josias in the stand-up. And Josias pretty good. Josias pretty good, man. At least offensively. Maybe not so much defensively because he stands so tall and he's got non-existent head movement. But Micallef exposed that Josias weakness, that defensive weakness beautifully in his UFC debut. So how do I see a fight playing out between the captain and the Welsh gangster? Well, they're both still fairly inexperienced. Oban has more UFC experience than Jonathan Micallef, but I kind of feel that Micallef has the higher ceiling. I would say Micallef is technically good, whereas Oban, I'd describe him more as a scrappy type of fighter. So in terms of who's technically better, I think it's Jonathan Micallef. But can he find a way to win when things aren't going his way? Because Oban Elliott knows how to do that. He knows how to find a win when things aren't going his way. And that didn't happen in his most recent fight. But he's still the type of fighter to overcome adversity or to stay in a fight that's not going his way. But toughness can only get you so far. And Oban needs to work on his wrestling. He needs to work on his grappling and work on not being so hittable. He just needs to sharpen his skills a little bit more. Whereas Jonathan Micallef, he needs to be tested more to truly know where he's at. And I'm going to take the captain. I'm going to pick Jonathan Micallef as the winner in this fight. I just think he's technically sharper than Oban Elliott, striking or grappling. I side with the captain, Jonathan Micallef. Next matchup, we've got Andre Petroski taking on Cam Battle Giraffe Rowston, which takes place in the middleweight division. So how do we feel about the debut matchup for Cam Rowston? Do we feel that Andre Petroski is an easy debut or more towards thrown into the deep end? Or have the UFC given Cam Rowston a very fair UFC debut? First, let's speak about the UFC tested fighter, Andre Petroski, who's currently 8 wins, 3 losses inside the UFC. That's a pretty good record. That's a decent record, man. 11 UFC fights, won 72% of them. That's pretty decent. Andre Petroski is primarily a grappler, a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got a couple submission wins in the UFC. And if he doesn't find a submission, he's happy to just win based on control time. He's happy to win rounds based on the superior grappling, ground and pound, all of that type of stuff. He's mainly a ground fighter. As for his striking ability, it's nothing to write home about, in all fairness. He does have some power in the hands. He can throw some pretty hard low kicks, body kicks, or even head kicks, but he's not a striker. Andre Petroski always does his best work when he gets the opponent to the ground. Being stuck under Petroski is what it would feel like if you got stuck under a fridge. You know what I'm saying? He's got those heavy hips. He's heavily muscled and extremely strong on the ground, both physically and technically. Here's the thing though, there are occasions where he doesn't get the opponent to the ground. So that's the first question sharp bettors are asking themselves with this fight. Anytime Andre Petroski's fighting, the first question is, can Andre Petroski get the opponent to the ground? Will Petroski get the opponent to the ground? Because look at some of his performances where he doesn't get the takedown. He lost to Edmund Shabazian recently, and Edmund looked great in that fight. There was no problems whatsoever in that fight for Edmund. He easily got off the fence, which in my opinion was really disappointing for the side of Petroski. Seeing Edmund break away from the clinch, break away from the fence so easily, that's the moment I knew Andre Petroski, he was cooked in that fight. I guess that's another question we can ask. If Andre Petroski gets Cam Rowston to the fence, does Cam Rowston just peel off the fence? Can he just break away from the clinch the same way Edmund did? So let's speak about Cam Rowston. Cam got to the UFC by way of the Contender Series just a few weeks ago, and I actually picked Cam Rowston as a plus 140 underdog, and his performance, it was the result of hard work, the result of not giving up, the result of discipline and persistence. Cam Rowston lost to Torres Finney on the Contender. He got dominated, but that didn't stop Cam Rowston for believing eventually he would be in the UFC. He went back to the drawing board after that Torres Finney loss. He got a couple stoppages on the regional scene, got another opportunity on the Contender, and did exactly what he was supposed to do on the Contender. He took his opportunity. He took that contract. He forced Dana White to give him that contract, and that's exactly what the big man did. That's exactly what you're supposed to do when you go to the Contender. Force Dana White to give you that contract. So looking at the skill set of Cam Rowston, naturally his chin is in the sky because he's a giraffe. He's 6'3", and typically the tall guys don't have the best takedown defense. So Andre Petroski in this fight is going to want a takedown. Torres Finney got 10 out of 14 takedowns against Cam Rowston, which kind of indicates Andre Petroski should be getting a takedown against Cam Rowston. And Andre Petroski has that same game plan as Torres Finney. Both of those guys are heavily muscled. They're both wrestlers, and they both typically impose their physicality on the opponent. So in a way, it's a similar matchup to the Torres Finney matchup that Cam Rowston found little to no success in. But has Cam Rowston improved since that Torres Finney fight, which took place in August last year? I'd say over 12 months, there have been some improvements in Cam Rowston's skill set, but I'm not entirely sure he's improved enough to the point where he's going to defend takedowns against someone like Andre Petroski. There are some things I like about Cam Rowston in this fight though. I think he's got better cardio than Petroski. I think he's going to have a higher output than Petroski. If the fight stays on the feet, he's going to have better striking numbers, not just in terms of throwing strikes, but also landing strikes. He's also fighting in Australia, which means if the fight is remotely close, you can certainly give the fight to Cam Rowston on a split. So there are multiple things I like about the debuting fight of Cam Rowston. But to answer the question we asked earlier, or I asked you guys earlier, is this an easy debut for Cam Rowston or is it a difficult debut? My answer, it's a difficult debut. I think Andre Petroski has proven on multiple occasions he knows how to win at the highest level. Is he the most entertaining? Certainly not. But he's won 72% of his UFC fights. If Andre Petroski sticks to his usual game plan, I think he could dominate Cam Rowston, which isn't a good thing for Cam Rowston, because you never want to start 0-1 inside the UFC. But after his loss on the Contender, he went and got better. If he lost this fight, he probably just goes and gets better. You learn more from your losses than your wins. So I'm going to predict Andre Petroski to win the fight. If he gets the takedown, which I think he will, even if he slows down in round one, I just think defending takedowns from Petroski, it's going to be a tough task for Cam Rowston. So I'm going to predict either a submission win or a decision win for Andre Petroski. Next matchup, we've got Navajo Stirling taking on Rodolfo Traitor Bellato, and this is taking place in the light heavyweight division. Let's first speak about the A side, the Kiwi, the rising undefeated prospect Navajo Stirling. I think Navajo has all the potential in the world to become a serious 205er. As of right now, he's still very inexperienced. He's only had 7 pro fights, so he's not ready for a ranked 205er just yet. He's a work in progress. But make no mistake, Navajo Stirling has all the potential in the world. I would compare him to Carlos Ulberg. I think he's on a similar path to Carlos Ulberg. He's big, he's technical, he's powerful, and he trains at the phenomenal CKB. He's got all the opportunity to become a serious 205er. So let's speak about his UFC performances so far. He debuted against Tuco Tokos, which is obviously a very easy debut. That's a layup. There's nothing difficult about fighting Tuco Tokos. And recently I did pick Tuco as an underdog against Tafa, but that was a different fight. Now Navajo completely dominated Tuco Tokos. He was a minus 900. Now Tuco did get 3 out of 9 takedowns, which is 33%. But each time Tuco got a takedown, Navajo was quickly back to his feet. Those CKB fighters have a really good understanding on how to get up off the mat. As for Navajo's performance against Erslan, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh, but I think he could have been more dominant, more decisive. This time though, he defended all the takedowns of his opponent. Erslan went 0-3 on the takedowns, and Navajo was so close to stopping that fight late in the fight. So overall, I think Navajo Stirling is already showing serious potential. He's primarily a kicker, just like Carlos Ulberg. He's extremely technical. He loves to throw the teep kick, the low kick, the head kick, just like Carlos Ulberg. His boxing hooks are nasty to the body. And one thing I've noticed is, if he throws hooks to the body and the opponent covers up trying to defend to the body, he just grabs the opponent's skull, puts the opponent into the Muay Thai plum and lands massive knees. He's also got deadly elbows off the break. I'm just seeing a young version of Carlos Ulberg with Navajo Stirling. Now the opponent, Rodolfo Bellato, currently 1 win, 1 draw, 1 no contest, and 0 losses in the UFC. What do we make of Rodolfo Bellato? He certainly doesn't have the same potential as Navajo Stirling. We're not looking at a future title challenger or a future champion with Rodolfo Bellato. There is a couple things that I do like about Rodolfo Bellato though. Firstly, it's the power. It's just that natural 205 Brazilian power. And the second thing I like about Rodolfo is the powerful and effective calf kick. Those calf kicks are so powerful. You don't want to take too many of those calf kicks. The dude knows how to throw a low kick. And I guess another thing that I like about Rodolfo, I'm actually starting to make him sound good. The third thing that I like about Rodolfo is his ability to survive when he badly gets rocked in a fight. In his debut, he basically got stopped by Ihor Peteria, somehow survived and went on to finish Peteria. Against Jimmy Crute, he lost round 1 10-8. He got dusted in round 1 by Jimmy Crute. Again, somehow survives, so his ability to survive is pretty good. But at the same time, he's not good defensively if he's getting rocked and getting dropped this often. He also got badly knocked out by Vitor Petrino on the Contender back in 2022. So how do we see the fight going between Navajo Stirling and Rodolfo Bellato? Well, I can't look past Navajo Stirling. I think Rodolfo Bellato has a puncher's chance. I think Navajo Stirling has way more than a puncher's chance. He's got the kicking advantage, not just the calf kick, but the body kick and the head kick. He's got heavy hooks to the body. He's a technician that isn't just relying on power. He's calm and composed for someone that's only 7-0. He's just a young Carlos Ulberg. I know I've said it multiple times on the breakdown, but he just is. He's a young Carlos Ulberg. And guys, I forgot to mention, look at Rodolfo against Paul Craig. Have you ever seen Paul Craig circle the octagon so freely? The way Rodolfo couldn't find him in there, he couldn't cut the cage off against Paul Craig. He was following him and he looked like a rookie. Now that's Paul Craig on the feet. Imagine him trying to dictate the dance against a young Navajo Stirling, a technical Navajo Stirling. I can't see it. I'm going to take Navajo Stirling with a KO TKO. Rodolfo's got a puncher's chance. Navajo has technical skill. There's levels to the game. And Navajo's going through these levels like Mario. Next matchup, we've got Tom Big Tray Nolan taking on Charlie the Cannibal Campbell, taking place in the lightweight division. And I love matchups that aren't easy to predict. And in my opinion, we've got a banger here. I didn't have a strong read before looking at the tape. And after looking at the tape, I still don't have a strong lean. But I'm excited to see how this one unfolds this weekend in Perth, Australia. Let's start the breakdown with the Aussie, Tom Big Tray Nolan, who's currently 3-1 inside the UFC. Tom Nolan's only 25 years old. He's still improving fight by fight, not in his physical prime just yet. Still learning, still developing inside the octagon. And it's not a terrible thing if he loses this weekend. He's still got 4 or 5 years before he enters his physical and mental prime. But let's break down the skill set of Tom Nolan. In his UFC debut, he really didn't get to show much. And that's because he got sent to a galaxy far, far away by Nicholas Motta. Nicholas Motta put hands on Tom Nolan, man. He welcomed him to the UFC in devastating fashion, pure dusteration fashion. Tom Nolan had his chin in the sky and it got exposed in his UFC debut. So the UFC matchmakers, after seeing that UFC debut, decided to give Tom Nolan a couple layup fights. They gave Tom Nolan Victor Martinez and Alex Reyes. In the Victor Martinez fight, Tom Nolan had a massive height advantage. He towered over Martinez. As for the performance, it was pretty dominant, but Tom did get dropped in round 1. He recovered quickly from the knockdown and then found a beautifully timed knee that shut down Victor Martinez. Then against Alex Reyes, another very dominant performance by Tom Nolan. He landed a bunch of kicks and completely dusted Alex Reyes, as most of us expected. There was a moment in round 1 though, where Tom got stunned. You know, that was kind of surprising. You don't really expect that against Alex Reyes. So based on the first 3 fights of Tom Nolan's UFC career, he got badly knocked out in his UFC debut. He won his second fight, but got dropped. He won his third fight, but got stunned in round 1. I kind of feel that Tom Nolan is a little bit chinny. He doesn't have the strongest chin. You can get knockdowns against Tom Nolan. You can stun him if you land quick, clean punches. That's one thing I don't like about Tom Nolan. He doesn't have the strongest chin. But guys, on a positive note, I really like the striking weapons of Tom Nolan. He's a southpaw striker that loves to fire that left kick. He'll throw that back kick over and over, sometimes to the calf, sometimes to the body, and sometimes a head kick. So his left kick is super active. He also likes spinning attacks, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but spinning attacks can be somewhat unpredictable. He can spin with the kick, he can spin with an elbow. He's got a mixed bag of striking weapons. Punches, kicks, knees, elbows. I'm also seeing clear improvements fight by fight. I kind of like that the UFC gave him a couple layups because it helped him get the experience needed at the highest level. He's learning on the job and the UFC know that. As for his most recent performance, he fought against Slava and arguably his best win to date. This was a classic case of mixed martial arts versus pure striking. Tom Nolan showed more tools, not just striking, but takedowns and also wrestling against the fence. It was a performance that showcased a true martial arts skill set, and that's always been Slava's problem. He's not well-rounded, whereas Tom Nolan, he displayed a well-rounded game and earned the biggest win of his career to date. So guys, overall, there's a lot to like about Tom Nolan. There's more to like than not to like. Now the opponent, Charlie the Cannibal Campbell, a fighter that didn't win on the Contender, but still found himself in the UFC. And in all fairness, Charlie's looked really, really good so far. He's currently 2-0. He completely dusted Alex Reyes in the first round in his debut, which is way more than what Tom Nolan done against Alex Reyes. Just look at the sharpness of Charlie's boxing. It's technical, it's powerful, great timing, great accuracy, excellent boxing technique on the side of Charlie Campbell. Then he fought Trevor Peek in the smaller octagon at the Apex, a very different fight from his UFC debut. Charlie Campbell clearly won this fight, but he had to work for the win. It wasn't just given to him, he had to work for the win. Trevor Peek just kept walking forward and showcased amazing durability, as he typically does. And Charlie just had to stay strong and not allow for Trevor Peek's Homer Simpson fighting style to break him. When you hit someone with your best shot over and over and they just keep walking forward, that can break some fighters, man. That can break some fighters. But it didn't break Charlie Campbell. He stayed composed. He continued to outclass Trevor Peek in every sense of the word. And his will to win remained strong against the zombie punch bag that is Trevor Peek. So how does a fight play out between Tom Nolan and Charlie Campbell? Well, I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see this fight. It's going to be a banger of a fight. But I do feel that Tom Nolan's chin, it's a little bit of a concern. His head movement, there's no head movement. He doesn't fight well on the back foot. And Charlie's boxing is extremely sharp and that has me a little bit worried for a flash knockdown or a flash KO. But guys, I do believe Tom Nolan has the better overall striking skill set. He's not just looking for punches. He's got the well-timed knee, a very active left kick. He spins with the kick and the elbow. He mixes in takedowns. He's got a sneaky submission game that could be effective against Charlie Campbell. I think Tom Nolan has the more dangerous and well-rounded offensive striking skills. And Tom Nolan is also 5 years younger than Charlie Campbell and has the hometown advantage. I'm expecting a very, very good fight, a very close fight, but I'm going to side with the Aussie. I'm going to take Tom Nolan to win this fight with a sneaky submission win or a win on the scorecards, potentially split. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a good fight, but I lean slightly towards Tom Nolan. But like I say, the main concern with Tom Nolan is the weak chin, the lack of head movement, and the overall weak defense. That's a concern. Next matchup, we've got Louis, the Vanilla Gorilla Sutherland, taking on Justin Badman Tafa. This fight takes place in the heavyweight division. Let's start with the newcomer, the Vanilla Gorilla, Louis Sutherland. Louis has 10 wins, 3 losses as a pro, now getting the opportunity to showcase his skill set at the highest level of mixed martial arts. And I've got to be honest, man, watching the tape on Louis Sutherland, as the famous GSP once said, I'm not impressed by your performance, but at the same time, it doesn't take too much to win against Justin Tafa. Louis does have a decent kicking game. I've seen him throw some solid kicks, so expect the kicks to be part of his performance this weekend. Expect him to throw the calf kick, maybe some body kicks, maybe some head kicks against Justin Tafa. As for the boxing of Louis Sutherland, I'm not too impressed. I'm really not. At times he lunges forward with wide punches. You don't want to throw the punches too wide. You want the punches to be tight, sharp, technical, from A to B. You don't want to go wide with your chin in the air. When you throw the punches wide and you're lunging forward, you're leaving too much space to be countered. A good example would be Justin Tafa against Parker Porter. The way Parker lunges forward with a wide right hand and Tafa just sleeps him. That's a beautiful example. As for the ground game of Louis Sutherland, I have seen him get takedowns. He does charge forward and occasionally bring the opponent to the canvas, but his ground control isn't the best. Having said that, Justin Tafa, his get-up game is non-existent. His grappling is zero. His wrestling is zero. Justin Tafa on the ground is shocking. So overall, guys, I do think Louis Sutherland is a fairly good addition to the heavyweight division. Is he the next Francis Ngannou? Absolutely not. Is he the next Cain Velasquez? Absolutely not. Is he the next Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gane, Stipe Miocic? Absolutely not. He's just another heavyweight added to the UFC. He's going to win some. He's going to lose some. Now let's speak about Justin Badman Tafa. The way Justin Tafa got dusted by Taliesin Teixeira was really bad, man. He got smacked with a clean elbow up close, and the moment the elbow lands, he just falls to the ground and says, yeah, no more of that. No more. You can have the win. I'm quitting. You look at Tafa's performance against Carl Williams, super disappointing. Justin literally has, like I say, zero wrestling, zero grappling, zero ground game. And that's a shame because at the highest level of mixed martial arts, some fighters do have wrestling. They do have grappling. And if you have zero of that, you're going to get dusted. So that's always been a major red flag with Justin Tafa. He's one-dimensional. It's almost like he would suit the bare-knuckle boxing scene way more than high-level mixed martial arts. Because that's all Justin Tafa wants. He wants to stand in the centre of the octagon and throw bombs. He doesn't want to clinch. He doesn't want to wrestle. He doesn't want to play the jiu-jitsu game. None of that is who Justin Tafa is. Justin Tafa, in his mind, none of that makes you a bad man, right? But Mike Tyson once said, fighting isn't for tough people. It's for intelligent people. Being a high-level fighter isn't just about who can stand in the middle of the ring and throw bombs, who can stand in the center of the octagon and throw bombs. Fighting is about intelligence. It's chess, not checkers. Who's got the better skill set? Who's faster? Who's sharper? Who's got more ways to win? Who can dictate the dance? Justin Tafa doesn't have many ways to win. He doesn't have a wide array of weapons. He just stands in the center of the octagon and he's looking for a gunfight. And in all fairness, the fans do want to see that type of fight. But Justin Tafa isn't always able to give the fans that type of fight because sometimes the opponent is wise to what Justin Tafa wants, and they're prepared to take Justin Tafa to the canvas. They're prepared to wrestle and grapple. So how does Louis Sutherland win in his UFC debut? The path of least resistance, clearly, is to take down Justin Tafa, bring him to the ground, wrestle Justin Tafa, and look for a stoppage on the ground, either a submission or a ground and pound stoppage. If you can't get either of those, just keeping Tafa on the ground is all you've got to do. Justin's takedown defense is non-existent. His get-up game is non-existent. He's just not good enough in that area of the fight. And I also feel that Justin Tafa doesn't like getting hit. I think Justin Tafa's a good hammer, but when it comes to being the nail, he's really bad, man. So I'm going to predict the slight underdog Louis Sutherland as the winner, but I'm not going to bet heavyweight mixed martial arts, because what if Louis Sutherland doesn't bring him to the mat? What if Louis Sutherland's lunging forward with the wide punches? Then he might get dusted. You know what I'm saying? But I'll take Louis Sutherland as the pick. Next matchup, we've got Jake the Celtic Kid Matthews taking on Neil Haitian Sensation Magny, taking place in the welterweight division. So starting the breakdown with the veteran fighter. Well, they're both veteran fighters, but let's start with the veteran's veteran, the Haitian Sensation Neil Magny. Neil Magny entered the UFC back in 2013. This will be his 36th UFC fight, over a decade of competing at the highest level of mixed martial arts and still kicking on. What a career Neil Magny's had. You've got to give him credit. You really do. Still competing, still winning at the highest level of mixed martial arts. Now, guys, here's the thing. Fighting is a young man's game. That's an absolute fact right there. You can ask any veteran, would you rather go to the cage in your mid-20s or would you rather go to the cage in your late 30s? Anyone who says mid to late 30s is an absolute liar. Neil Magny is now 38 years old and maybe one of the best 38-year-old welterweights you'll ever see, but he's still past his best. He's still past his prime. He's coming off a nice win against Zaleski, where he did lose the early stages of that fight, but he really capitalised once Zaleski started to slow down. After he rocked Zaleski, he never allowed him to recover. He didn't let Zaleski get a breath in that second round. And to be honest, guys, that's one of Neil Magny's best attributes. It's the pace and pressure that he's able to fight at. The output has always been a major weapon on the skill set of Neil Magny. I think Neil Magny kind of relies on his opponent to get tired though. Even looking back to his comeback win against Mike Malott, another case of his opponent getting tired, and Magny just capitalising on that moment. The moment he smells blood, Mike Malott's dominating that whole fight, but the second he gets tired, Neil Magny's like, okay, I've seen this 100 times. Not 100 times inside the cage, but imagine how many times Neil Magny has felt the training partner slowing down. He's a true veteran of the game, is Neil Magny. He just knows when the opponent's tired, and when he felt Mike Malott becoming weak, he took that win. He robbed that win from Mike Malott, but that's what veterans do. They pull that Uno reversal card when you least expect it. We do have to mention a couple of the losing performances recently for Neil Magny. The knockout loss to Carlos Prates was absolutely diabolical. The way he lost to Michael Morales, pure dusteration. I mention these knockout losses because taking that type of damage towards the end of your career is really bad. Now the opponent, the A-side, and some people might disagree with me calling Jake Matthews the A-side, but at this stage of both fighters' careers, I'd say Jake Matthews is certainly the A-side. I think Jake Matthews is so well-rounded. He's amazingly well-rounded. He joined the UFC back in 2014, a year later than Neil Magny. He's currently 15-7, which isn't a bad record, but in my opinion, that UFC record doesn't do Jake Matthews justice. I think he's better than a 15-7 UFC record. I remember breaking down his last fight against Chidi Njokwani, and I picked him to win as a slight underdog. And I remember saying that Jake Matthews has never won more than 4 fights in a row since being in the UFC. And that's something he needs to break past. He's won 2 fights in a row. He's won 3 fights in a row. He's won 4 fights in a row. But he's never broken past that 4-fight winning streak. And I'm telling you, man, Jake Matthews is good enough to put together 5 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins in a row. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a quality wrestler when he uses his wrestling. His boxing is so technically sharp, so fundamentally on point with the hands is Jake Matthews. He's powerful. He's fast. He's got all the weapons, all the experience. He's got it all. He just has to go to the cage and showcase his skill set. And that's exactly what he did against Chidi and Jaquani. He got it done in round 1, took the back, exposed the grappling of Chidi. And you look at his fight against Francisco Prado, completely outboxed Prado. The fight was a pure stand-up fight, and Jake Matthews just outclassed him from start to finish. A beautiful boxing display from the Celtic kid, Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews is currently on a 3-fight win streak. If he wins this one, he goes to 4 fights in a row. And at that point, it's about breaking the personal record, breaking past that 4-fight win streak, because we don't consider Jake Matthews a young fighter anymore. He's past that learning on the job stage. I want to see Jake Matthews go on a 5-fight win streak, 6 fights, 7 fights in a row, because he's good enough to do that, and I believe he can do that. So how does Neil Magny win against Jake? Well, kind of the same thing against Mike Malott or Zaleski. He's got to wait for Jake Matthews to get tired. Neil Magny might lose the whole fight, but he's got to wait for that one moment where Jake Matthews starts to slow down. But here's the thing. Sometimes the opponent's will to win remains strong. Sometimes that fatigue you're waiting for never arrives. Jake Matthews is in the prime of his career. He's got excellent cardio, super well-rounded skill set. Waiting for Jake Matthews to get tired is certainly a losing game plan, in my opinion. You have to make him tired. You have to fight at a super high pace. Drown him if you want Jake Matthews to get tired. But can Neil Magny do that? Can he actually drown Jake Matthews? Can he overwhelm him with punches and bunches, push him against the fence, work him over in the clinch, keep him against the fence, even bring him to the canvas? Can Neil Magny do all of that and make Jake Matthews tired? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no, man. Jake Matthews has excellent footwork, excellent timing. He mixes up his boxing combinations really well, so you don't get a good read on what punch is coming next. He's not a rookie like Mike Malott. He's not old like Zaleski. Jake Matthews is a problem, man. And I think he should win against Neil Magny. So the prediction has to be Jake Matthews. It's Team Jake Matthews right now. Let's go. Next matchup, we've got Jack Farr Jenkins taking on Ramon the Savage Taveras, taking place in the featherweight division. And this one's pure fire. We've got pure fire down under in Perth, Australia. Jack Jenkins is a very tough fighter to be in there with. And Ramon Taveras is truly a savage, far from a walk in the park, is both of these fighters. Let's start with Jack Jenkins, who's primarily a kicker. He can throw punches, as most fighters in the UFC can, but he's all about the kicking. The way he lets those Muay Thai kicks fly at the opponent, it's violent stuff, it really is. The career of Jack Jenkins so far hasn't exactly been the best. By no means a bad career either. He's 3 wins, 2 losses in the UFC. Looking to kick on now is Jack Jenkins, looking to put some more wins together, get the record to 5-2, 6-2 maybe. Let's analyse some of the performances of Farr Jack Jenkins. His debut performance come against Don Shainis, which is a very nice debut to have. Nothing too scary about Don Shainis, if Don doesn't mind me saying. And Jack Jenkins dominated that whole fight, as any good -400 would. The jab of Jack Jenkins, it looked good. The combinations also look very good. The way he would go jab upstairs, hook to the body, then hard outside calf kick. That's a beautiful 3-piece. You're targeting all areas of the opponent with that combo. That's excellent stuff. Jab upstairs, to the body, then finish with a calf kick. You don't get much cleaner for combination striking than head, body, calf. That's good stuff. So many times in that debut where Jack Jenkins land the calf kick, he was destroying Don Shainis with that calf kick. And that's something I really love about the skill set, the striking skill set of Jack Jenkins. It's his ability to remind the opponent, don't stand too heavy on that lead leg. You stand heavy on that lead leg, I'll chop it down. I'll smack you with those low kicks. And he's so good at kicking. He's so good at kicking, man. He can go southpaw as well and kick from the southpaw stance. It's not just one stance that you have to anticipate kicks from. He can switch stances and kick. And that just adds another layer to his skill set. Now let's speak about the 2 losses for Jack. The first loss was pretty unfortunate. He went to Snap City against Chepe Mariscal. He snapped his arm. He tried to break his fall and he snapped his arm. Very unfortunate. But overall, there is positives in that performance. It did feel like Chepe Mariscal was starting to break Jack Jenkins though. The tide was turning. Round 1 was good, but the tide was turning. Then against Santos, I put some money on Santos, and again, There's positives for Jenkins in that fight. He wins round 1, but the tide started to shift past round 1. He just couldn't keep up with Santos. He dropped Santos bad in round 1. It was a beautifully timed head kick that so nearly shut the lights off on the Brazilian. And after he dropped Santos, he followed up with ground and pound, failed to end the fight with ground and pound, then had to defend on the ground from a triangle attack. And I think the ground game in round 1 actually fatigued Jenkins a little bit. In the second round, Santos was landing body kicks. He pushed Jenkins against the fence, where he's landing more knees to the body. Then he got Jenkins to the ground, a nice takedown, and he just smothered Jenkins for the whole round. And by the end of round 2, you're looking at a fight that's 1-1, but you're also looking at a fight where one fighter's broken mentally and physically, whereas Santos, he was building in confidence, getting stronger as the fight went on. So I'm sure Jenkins this weekend is going to be hungry to win, hungry to get back to winning ways. Now the opponent, the savage Ramon Taveras, who's primarily a boxer, currently 1-on-1 in the UFC. What makes this fight so fun is it's kicking versus punching. And those fights are typically won based on who's able to fight at their striking range. The kicker wants kicking space. The boxer wants less space. The boxer wants to be at arm's length. So the range game will definitely be interesting between Ramon Taveras and Jack Jenkins. And I think Ramon Taveras, based on his UFC debut, he's got the potential to be very violent. He's willing to take a punch to give a punch. I picked him against Pericic in his debut at slight underdog odds. And what a fight. Sidi was the aggressor the whole fight. And Ramon just boxed him on the outside. He just circled the octagon and badly boxed him up, just pieced him up for the whole fight. Against Davy Grant though, this was a very different performance from Pericic. The first difference I noticed with this fight was Ramon was made to advance forward. He couldn't stay boxing on the outside. He found very little success fighting on the outside. Davy Grant just didn't walk into his punches the same way as Pericic. So Ramon fell behind on the striking numbers in round 1. And right near the end of round 1, he started advancing forward, meeting Davy Grant in the centre of the octagon. And round 2, round 3, exactly the same thing. Ramon was made to fight going forward way more than what he did against Pericic. But the main problem with Ramon is he's mainly a puncher. He's quite one-dimensional. He's not looking for takedowns. He's not a quality grappler. He's not landing a bunch of kicks. He's not going to the clinch. He's just a boxer. So you don't have to anticipate a variety of striking weapons. He's also quite low output with his boxing. So not only is he predictable with his one-dimensional boxing style, there's not enough punches being thrown. With 50 seconds left in round 2 against Davy Grant, the UFC showed the striking numbers on screen and Davy Grant had over 60 strikes. Ramon had just over 20. To be 10 minutes into a fight and only landing just over 20 significant strikes, that's diabolical. It really is. It's just not enough. Ramon needs to throw more punches, not just look for the perfect counter punch. He needs to let his hands go way more in this fight. Guys, also look at round 3 against Davy Grant. Grant's letting his hands go like he's the one losing the fight. He starts letting nasty power hooks fly, multiple punch combinations, and he wasn't even losing the fight. But it just shows the urgency late. Davy Grant had the urgency, and Ramon, he's not doing enough. If Jack Jenkins and Ramon Taveras both let their strikes fly, there's no waiting, there's no hesitation. I'm telling you guys, we've got a barn burner of a matchup. If we do get a slower paced type of fight, where both fighters are, taking their time, trying to find the perfect moment to let their strikes go, if both fighters are respecting one another, then I'm going to lean towards Jack Jenkins because he's technically sharper. He's not just a kicker. He can go to the body with the punches. He can let the jab go upstairs. I wouldn't say he's a better puncher than Ramon, but in terms of who's the better striker overall, it's Jack Jenkins. And like I mentioned earlier, the mixture of combos with Jack Jenkins, he can start upstairs, go to the body and the calf all in one combination. Whereas Ramon Taveras, he's waiting, single strike, jab, 2-punch combination, more waiting. There's not enough on the side of Ramon. So guys, in a way, I kind of feel that Ramon Taveras is the perfect style for someone like Jack Jenkins. And that's why I'm going to pick for Jack Jenkins to get a win this weekend in Perth, Australia. The prediction has to be Farjak Jenkins. Jimmy the Brute Crute taking on Erslan, the co-main event taking place in the light heavyweight division. And already I'm thinking, fight doesn't go the distance. Co-main 205, yeah, fight doesn't go the distance. But let's speak about the fight. I like this fight. I like this fight, man. Anytime we get a Jimmy Crute matchup, it's always a good time. Hey, win or lose for Jimmy Crute, you know it's going to be fireworks. Never miss a Jimmy Crute matchup, that's for sure. Guys, I feel that Jimmy Crute in 2018, 2019, 2020, he was a problem. That's when Jimmy Crute had all the confidence in the world, as most fighters typically do before they lose a few fights. After you lose a few fights, it's almost like that down-to-earth feeling can break a fighter. You need that delusion. You need to believe you're the best in the world. You can be champion, because without that delusional belief, you put yourself at a confidence disadvantage. If you go to the cage and you think, yeah, I'm pretty good, but I'm not the best, and your opponent's thinking, my opponent's pretty good, but I'm the best, that's going to show. That's going to show more than not. And those losses, they can really break a fighter. They can really bring a fighter back down to earth. And that's kind of what happened with Jimmy Crute, isn't it? Once he started to lose, it just broke him. And he stepped away from the fight game. And that's always a red flag. When a fighter retires, they call it a day, and then they come back. You're always wondering, are you coming back for the money? Or are you coming back because you truly believe you can be the best version of yourself? You can be a champion? No, I'm not entirely sure how to answer that for Jimmy Crute. I would like to give Jimmy Crute the benefit of the doubt and say, you know, he's back because he can believe he can do better. But guys, the thing is, Jimmy Crute defensively is very bad. His striking defense is just, it's on the same level as Jamie Mullarkey, nearly. But on a more positive note, he's super tough. You can land some massive punches against Jimmy Crute. You can stun him, you can rock him, you can drop him. But he's certainly a tough Aussie. He's so tough. And his grappling, it's extremely dangerous. When Jimmy Crute gets the opponent to the ground, make no mistake, he's a monster on the ground. A lethal submission fighter is Jimmy Crute. And that's always been the path of least resistance in the game of Jimmy Crute. Get the takedown, get the opponent to the ground, and dust them up on the ground. And I'm a fan of Jimmy Crute. He's very exciting to watch. But from a gambling perspective, I'm not a fan of betting on Jimmy Crute, because his defense is so bad. Now guys, the opponent Erslan, 0-2 inside the UFC. He lost his debut against Cutelaba, which is definitely a tough debut to have, right? Ian Cutelaba as a debut. That's tough. Then as a punishment for losing that fight, you get put up against Navajo Stirling, who doesn't have massive name value, but like I said earlier, Navajo Stirling, he's so technical. He's on the same path as Carlos Ulberg. Now, is Jimmy Crute an easier matchup than Ian Cutelaba and Navajo Stirling? I mean, based on how hittable Jimmy Crute is, I guess it's an easier matchup for Erslan. But if Jimmy Crute brings him to the ground, doesn't play that stand and bang type of game, Jimmy Crute can dust him on the ground. He can find a submission the same way he did against Marcin Prashnio. Guys, even in my last fight for Jimmy Crute, I made it a gun to the head prediction. I'm going to do it again. Gun to the head, MP5, Red Tiger with the silencer. You point that gun to my head and you ask me who's going to win. Hey, the same thing as last time. The same thing, man. It's Team Jimmy Crute. But don't put money on Jimmy Crute fights. Don't do that. Or put money on fight doesn't go the distance. Bet on that. Carlos Blackjack Ulberg versus Dominick the Devastator Reyes, the main event in Perth, Australia, taking place in the light heavyweight division. And guys, I've got to say, it's a massive fight. It's a massive main event this weekend because there's title implications involved in this fight. If Dominick Reyes wins, he could be the next one to fight either Alex Pereira or Magomed Ankalaev. If Carlos Ulberg wins, the same for him. He could be the next for the title shot. So make no mistake, it's a massive main event. So who should we start with? Let's start with Dominick Reyes. So for anyone that doesn't know, I've been doing YouTube breakdowns for quite a while. And there was one fight I once spoke about. The fight was Dominick Reyes versus John Jones. And this fight happened back in 2020, early 2020. And I picked Dominick Reyes to win this fight. You can go back and check. You can go 5 years back on my channel. It's still there. It's documented. And when I made that pick on Reyes as a plus 400, so many people told me, there's no way John Jones is going to lose. There's no way Reyes would win this fight. You're crazy. You're out of your mind. And you know what's crazy? Guys, you know what's crazy? I think Jon Jones won. The whole world picked Jon Jones. And the whole world says Reyes won. But I'm on the other side with both of those things. I picked Dom Reyes. And I say Jon Jones wins. So yeah, I'm in the minority on both of those things. And that fight took place when Dom Reyes was at his absolute prime, his mental prime, his physical prime. And that's the main reason why I put money on Dominick Reyes against the greatest of all time. He just had this aura. He had this aura about him back in 2020. And I felt that it could be a problem against Jon Jones, especially at plus 400. Now everyone says he won that fight. I think it's about as close as you could get to possibly winning without winning. That's how close I feel Dominick Reyes was. Now after that loss, things just went so badly for Dominick Reyes. He got destroyed by Jan Blachowicz. And so many people said, well, Dominick Reyes, he's the champion. He's going to go to this fight and win against Jan Blachowicz and become the official champion. Everyone was so sure that he would win against Polish Power. And yeah, Jan smoked him. Jan dusted him. Then he gets put into the cage with Jiri Prochazka, and everyone's thinking, this Jiri dude's weird. He's got a weird striking style, a weird haircut, a weird aura, and Jiri smoked him. Jiri dusted him. And at this point you're thinking, how has it gone so wrong for Dominick Reyes? How do you basically win against Jon Jones, then completely fall off a cliff? It doesn't make sense. Well, things get even worse. By this point, his chin is essentially dust. He can't take a punch anymore. He's just a washed version of himself. And now Ryan Spann is sending him to another galaxy with devastating power jabs. And at this point, you're thinking to yourself, Dominick Reyes, bro, it's time to hang him up. It's time to retire. It's time to say goodbye to the devastator Dominick Reyes. But you know what they say, guys? It ain't about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. And that, my friends, is why Dominick the Devastator Reyes now finds himself on a 3-fight win streak. Reyes never gave up. He never gave in. He kept pushing forward no matter how many times he failed after that Jon Jones fight. And all that hard work has eventually paid off again. And you can only respect it. You can only applaud that hard work and dedication from Dominick Reyes. And I bet on him as a plus 200 against Dustin Jacoby. And that was the start of the win streak. And if you notice, guys, the fighters Reyes lost against all have insane power in the hands. You've got Polish Power, you've got Jiri Prochazka, and you've got Ryan Spann, who's very dangerous early. But Jacoby, he's always been a kicker. Dustin Jacoby was never a big puncher. So from a stylistic point of view, Dustin Jacoby was a good opponent for Dominick Reyes. Then you give him Anthony Smith, and that's another layup, right? That's a layup because Anthony Smith, right near the end of the career. Now you give him Nikita Krylov, and that's a special win. That is a special win for Dominick Reyes because Nikita's very dangerous. And the way Dominick Reyes just smacked him with that beautiful step back counter left hand, my goodness, pure dusteration, beautiful counter boxing from the devastator Dominick Reyes. So how do I rate Dominick Reyes overall in 2025? Well, I highly respect his willingness not to give up. I think that needs to be respected and it needs to be said. You know, to get knocked down so many times, to keep pushing forward, to not give up, it needs to be respected. I also think he's a very technical southpaw boxer. The left hand, the left kick of Dominick Reyes, it's very good stuff. Reyes has always been a very lethal southpaw boxer, but his chin is made of dust. And just because he's on a win streak, it doesn't mean his chin is suddenly Iron Man's chin. His chin's still bad. The opponent, Carlos Blackjack Ulberg, now 8 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. A phenomenal kickboxer is Carlos Ulberg. He's a technician in every sense of the word. A training partner of Adesanya when Adesanya was still around. And the best current fighter at CKB. Now getting very close to his first title shot in the UFC. The career of Carlos Ulberg, for the most part, has been extremely dominant. His UFC debut didn't go to plan. Kennedy Nzechukwu, he caused a nice upset against Carlos Ulberg. And that was a real lesson for Carlos Ulberg. Don't use all your energy in round 1. Don't disrespect the opponent Now you're fighting in the UFC. And that was a real lesson learned early in the career of Carlos Ulberg, because since that loss, Carlos hasn't lost. The win streak he's on, it all started with Fabio Chiron. He dominated that fight. No trouble whatsoever. Then he KO'd Tafont and Chokwi as a slight underdog. I'll never understand how he's plus money there. Then he easily KO'd Nikolai Negamerianu in round 1. Again, the bookmaker put Carlos minus 120. Another bad line, but good for us. Then it was minus 450 against Ihor Peteria, which does make sense because Peteria is one of the worst to ever do it. He destroyed Dawan Jung. He completely destroyed Alonzo Menefield in just 12 seconds, which is hilarious. You don't overextend against a technician like Carlos Ulberg, and the same with Reyes. You look at Nikita Krylov overextending and he got put to sleep. So that's something both fighters understand here. Dominick Reyes will certainly respect Carlos, and I can't see Carlos getting over-aggressive against Reyes. They're both going to respect each other, and you may see an over here, over 1.5, over 2.5. Carlos Ulberg also won against former title challenger Volkan Ozdemir, and we know Volkan, he's got the type of power that can put anyone to sleep. So seeing Carlos Ulberg look so calm, picking his shots at the right time, and just striking at his pace against such a power puncher, that's good to see. And the same thing against former champion Jan Blachowicz. He fought at his pace on the outside. He almost wants the opponent to go first. He wants the opponent to try and knock him out, to be the one that goes first, and he's going to counter with heavy hooks. His low kicks are extremely damaging. There's no wind up on the low kick. It's short, it's fast, it finds the target so quickly. And the same with the punches. There's no telegraph on the Carlos Ulberg punches. They're sharp and they find the target so quickly. So how does a fight play out between Carlos Ulberg and Dominick Reyes? I think 5 rounds actually benefits Carlos Ulberg. His striking style, it suits a 5-rounder. He's so patient. He doesn't feel like he's got to rush his work in there. And when you give someone like that an extra 2 rounds to work, I kind of feel they get 5% better, which is a scary thing to think about because Carlos Ulberg is already an absolute beast. On the flip side, I'm not sure 5 rounds benefits Dominick Reyes. In his fight against John Jones, I actually think the extra 2 rounds is the reason why he lost against John Jones. And Carlos is entirely in control of his power. That power doesn't control Carlos. He controls that power in a very technical way, which makes the power even more dangerous. So Dominick Reyes has to be extremely careful, tuck the chin, don't overextend, and stay defensively sharp. However, guys, if Reyes fights at Ulberg's pace, that's where the low kick of Carlos Ulberg, they're landing on the inside leg of Dom Reyes, because this is going to be southpaw versus traditional. Reyes is the southpaw, Carlos is striking from a traditional stance, and I always feel that anytime you have opposite stances, it always favours who's technically sharper. Often you hear people say, this person struggles against southpaws, this person struggles against orthodox, but I think it actually favours who's technically sharper, who's technically better, and in this case, I do favour it to be Carlos Ulberg. More advantages for Carlos would be he's younger in fight mileage, he's also got the stronger chin, his style suits 5 rounds more than Reyes. Carlos is fighting at home. Carlos is more unpredictable with his striking, whereas Reyes, you can figure him out over 25 minutes, and John Jones did. John Jones did. It seems to me that Carlos Ulberg is going to get the win this weekend. I do lean towards Carlos. Initially, I was thinking, the veteran Dominick Reyes, close to plus 200. I was leaning towards that initially, but I just think Carlos Ulberg, he's in that beast mode. He's in his prime. And that prime, it can be scary. It can be dangerous. And that's why so many people lean towards Reyes winning against John Jones, because that version of Dominick Reyes was in his prime, the same way Carlos Ulberg right now is in his prime. So I lean towards Blackjack Carlos Ulberg in the main event in Perth, Australia. And I think Dominick Reyes with his win streak, it's been good, but I think it's going to end. I lean towards Carlos Ulberg. That's the pick. As always, my homies, let me know who you think's going to win in the main event, in the co-main event, your Money City plays, your underdog plays, your favourite bets, your favourite picks. Drop all that stuff in the comment section below. And as always, keep your eyes to the sky, never glued to your shoes. Enjoy Perth, Australia. It's going to be good. Let's go.